welcoming in Jennifer Mathieu, Executive Director, and Alycia Chrosniak, Assistant Director of CCEI, Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And we're excited to talk about the upcoming kind of pitch competition for shaping CC's future, but ultimately the impact and reach that CCEI has to date and what the future looks like for future cohorts. What we've been talking about is, those that a select few that have gone through the CCEI program are participating in the pitch competition for the next Shaping CC's Future event, which is super exciting. I think what we really wanted to get to was sort of the impetus of the program, how you guys, how it's developed, how it's changed, what you've sort of seen and still feel like you can accomplish, and kind of get more behind the scenes of what brought these companies to a place where they can even be viable investments. Mm-hmm. So when it started 15 years ago, what was the baseline goal for CCEI? Were you guys around to know? I don't think.
Yeah, so
18 now.
Yeah, it's been 18 years.
Yeah.
And no, we weren't. We were both undergrads at that time, right? You were just starting college. Yeah. So no, we weren't in it at the time, but from just historically looking back at the programming, so the state of Connecticut gave UConn funding and said, here's an investment in supporting entrepreneurship, supporting the ecosystem in the state of Connecticut. The idea is very general. It was providing support to UConn affiliated entrepreneurs in hopes that it creates a pipeline of talent in the state to keep people here in Connecticut, mm-hmm. growing their businesses here, hiring here, et cetera. And that meant so many things. In 2007, there wasn't entrepreneurship programs everywhere. We weren't talking about startups and at least the way that we are now, right? It's part of pop culture. It's part of the things that we say and we do. So that programming started as...
Everyone has a unicorn idea.
Seriously. But I think there's a lot in the media that's changed that, right? With Shark Tank and other programs, like people just talk about entrepreneurship, mm-hmm. even those that aren't even in it and really truly know what it is. And so it started really as courses for students to learn about businesses. So a lot of them went out and interned with or did projects. So if you had a startup, maybe you'd go to a student team as part of the programming. They might work on a go-to-market strategy or help with a new product launch, and that would be their project. But it wasn't really the students that were creating the business. It was the students helping business owners, which has value, mm-hmm. but that wasn't necessarily what we needed at the time. As we've added this scaffolding of infrastructure around programming at UConn, we've been able to build and build and build, and that's all we've been doing. Every time we understand that there's a certain problem or a pain point or a lack of support in an area, we come in and we assess what's needed, how can we provide support, and is it CCEI that provides that support, or are we helping our ecosystem partners within UConn or within the state of Connecticut to create capabilities to support those entrepreneurs?
Have the sort of, has the bar shifted as far as, what gets admitted to the program or who gets accepted, and how has it shifted based off of an interest of the state or others mm-hmm. to go in certain directions? My mind goes to we have great manufacturing, let's keep building there, or we have biosciences, mm-hmm. right? Does that influence at all?
It's interesting. We'll talk about AI in a second, mm-hmm. because I want to dive into that. And Alycia, I'd love to hear your opinions on just the sheer volume of applications. We weren't getting so many applications that we had to be incredibly selective at the very beginning. So we would coach them, work one-on-one, try to get them to the point where they could go through our programs. Now we're getting so many more applications than we actually have seats for in our programs. And we still have to figure out how do we one-on-one coach them until they're ready to get to that point. But I think AI has changed it because everybody is talking about it. So every one of our startups likes to add AI-powered mobile app to do this, or AI-powered that. And sometimes it's really valuable for the business to have that integrated. Sure. In some cases, it's just like buzzwords. Mm-hmm. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the bar is higher now to get into the summer fellowship program because of what Jen was saying. Entrepreneurship is just everywhere now. The level that these undergrads are coming in at UConn with knowledge of entrepreneurship, business ideas, ready to jump into the ecosystem and tell us how the ecosystem could be better is just levels higher than what I was doing when I was in college. So they're coming in with these ventures. Summer Fellowship is just one of our programs. It's our flagship program, but we have a slew of programs that are in our pipeline before that. So teams are going through those, starting at a higher level, coming through them, and then thus ending up at Summer Fellowship at a higher level. So we've actually had to build out kind of new parameters for who gets accepted and what those levels are that you have to meet to get in, so that we can just kind of ensure that we have a semi-coherent like cohort going through. But I think it's amazing how much entrepreneurship in Connecticut has kind of influenced what we're able to do now with our programs.
Yeah. Could you say some of that criteria, for people that are listening out there who have businesses who are interested in this program?
Yeah, so for all of our programs at CCEI, so they're all open to students, faculty, staff, or alumni of UConn. Each program kind of has a different parameter, if it's just for students or whatever. But Summer Fellowship in particular is you have to be affiliated with UConn in one of those ways. And then we want to make sure that you have a validated customer segment. So you know who those initial customers are that you're going after, and you've validated that market segment actually exists, and that the problem you're trying to solve is actually a problem that others are having and not just you. So you've gone out and you've done customer discovery, right? You've talked to a bunch of people, figured out that other people want the solution. And then the other thing we look for is kind of having a base like MVP prototype of your product, so that whether it's digital, physical, service, whatever that is, so that you know what you're going to build, and we can then help you like kind of finish that process, have you work with our product development partners, whoever it is, to get across that line.
And the startups are scalable ventures. So I always say, we won't help you if you want to start a pizza shop. We'll definitely connect you. We have great resources, Connecticut Small Business Development Center, SCORE, other resources, and we can help you. But if you develop a new way to cook pizza, like really well in Connecticut, obviously, right?
Well, it's hard to do.
Yeah. But if you come in and you innovate something along those lines, or you're trying to create this new process for something, that's where we would help you go through the programming and process.
Yeah. And how have you guys utilized alumni and people who have gone through the program or the fellowship, who have gone on, had successful careers? How do you reel them back in to help the next generation?
Funding. Yeah. So it's interesting because, UConn, you think university, you think faculty, students have like access to normal program, but we're actually one of the only, I think, kind of universities that has an entrepreneurship program that allows alumni to participate in that program. So we see it as twofold, right? We want them to come back and participate in the program, be founders in our program, and they can do that with our 2 years out of college or 20 years out of college. And then there's the other side of that, where program alumni, we have come back in and serve as mentors, speakers, panelists. And yeah, sometimes it's providing funding because their business has done so well that they're able to now assist us in that way, which is just really great because it keeps the ball rolling through future cohorts.
And they want to give back because they know what an impact the program has had on them. So they'll text us, they'll call us, they're like, hey, when do you need me for summer fellowship? Hey, I can come in this day. Like, before we even ask them, they just want to be a part of it. They're really part of the family, and you can tell that based on their love and their support of the startups.
Hope so, right? You reap the rewards.
Yeah.
So give back, right? Pay it forward a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there is there a balance, or how did you get to sort of the number of and the financial sort of support that you provide? Does everyone get financial support? Is it, like, if people are going just trying to find funding, right? They want to like accelerate. Yes, all the other things are good, but is it a funding mechanism, or is it really more of a mentorship program that has access to funding?
Everything we offer has some sort of support around the funding. I personally don't believe just dropping money with an entrepreneur and leaving is overly helpful. I think they need some guidance, especially those that are just getting started or younger entrepreneurs. Sure. We're trying to coach them on budgeting and effective use of their funds. We're talking about specifically summer fellowship. Each of our startups gets $15,000 in non-dilutive funding. So every one of those 10 teams has gotten that investment from CCEI. And we provide support on how to use that. They actually meet with members of our team to work through what is the best use of this fund. How could you make that $15,000 last you the entire year? Because we let them use it over the course of a year, not just the 8 weeks they're with us. And then the goal is it's there to unlock the power of other funding, and we help them get access to other accelerators. And if they're ready, start raising.
How did you get to that number though? Or is that just
That's a good question.
what is available in the bank account, or was that like, was there some measure of a little bit more is, too much for them to handle at once, or, was there?
We started with that number and said, let's measure the usage. What's the percentage of startups that use the funding, and how many use 98 to 100% of that funding? And every year it was about that amount, but they weren't necessarily asking for more because they were positioned to go on to the Wolf New Venture competition, which is happening in October in this year. I'm sure we'll talk about it as we continue. And then we've used that 15 as a benchmark to go backwards and say, okay, what support scaffolding do we need to provide before they get to the 15? And we've incrementally given funding and different programs to support that.
I know that some universities have their own like libraries of IP that students can pull from, and does UConn have something similar, or do you maintain any of sort of the businesses that didn't have a great first run? Like, does anyone get a second chance to go dust that idea off and build on it?
That's an interesting question. So UConn, like many research universities or universities in general, has something called the Technology Commercialization Services, or the Tech Transfer Office, which is where if you're faculty, you're a PhD student, and you've been using UConn resources, then UConn owns your IP for that. So you license it back from them. So we do see students come in and we build ventures around IP that exists at UConn already. And then we work with the faculty and PhD students that have invented something amazing, like at UConn Health or in the College of Engineering, and they come through our program to help them commercialize that IP. I don't know if
we've played around when we had a full-time MBA program at UConn. We actually played around with them dusting off the IP that sits on the shelf, and even if, like, I'm not sure if it's a licensing play or if it's a true venture spin out, they'll determine the market opportunity and what's the best path forward. But really, if the inventor doesn't want to push it forward and there's no one on the other end to buy the license or to use the license, then it takes an entrepreneur to come in and say, hey, I'm actually going to spend my time and my energy bringing this to market. And at that point, by the time students graduate, they're just ready to go off and get a job. At least from that program, when we piloted that a few years ago. We did that actually during COVID to give those students access to internships. If you remember, a lot of the internships closed down because of that. We gave those students the chance to do that virtually with us.
And you mentioned AI before, and I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. And how has that been such a game changer for these students, for these businesses, and for yourselves as well?
I think it has allowed our entrepreneurs to iterate more quickly. We just had an entrepreneur, Haley Seeger from One with Swim, did a fireside chat with us a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about how she so wished that it existed when she was first starting out, because she could have had access to tools, knowledge, been able to iterate off of her designs, everything she was trying to build, just so much faster than she was back in 2020, just 5 years ago. So I think it's been kind of a game changer for our startups in that respect. I also think it's allowing them to, most times in a good way, sometimes in an unnecessary way, but add AI features to their products. So whether that's, kind of helping a database on the back end that they're building out, or building an entire product around AI, they've really been able to utilize it in some very cool ways.
And we've helped them think about ways to use it in customer discovery. So in a GPT, you can say, pretend you are a mom that doesn't have time to go shopping on the weekend, whatever, right? Putting these parameters, can you respond to the following questions, pretending you're this persona? So while it's not 100% accurate every single time, it gives you a baseline, and you can pull apart questions, and then you can go out and ask questions more effectively and efficiently. So I think even just from an early ideation process, it's a game changer.
That's interesting. I never thought of it from that perspective.
Yeah. I mean, has it made vetting the businesses more difficult though? Because so much of it is like, oh, it's got AI in it, right? Or like some of the underlying fundamentals become a little soft because there's too much reliance on what AI has been able to cobble together as like a concept or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of partially why we enabled these new parameters for the summer fellowship program last year, of having that validated customer segment. So it's not just, oh, you've come up with this cool idea via ChatGPT, but you've actually gone out and validated that there's a need for this, and put some time in and gotten some bones behind it. Because otherwise, people could just be applying left and right with things that are filling out the application for them. So I think we've done a pretty good job of reeling that in.
Or the longevity. I mean, my mind was going to like the Uberify everything, right? Or like everything was like Ify for like a period of time there, right? And it's like, it feels like we're in that little bit of that era now where like you kind of like bolt it on, but like, is it really a good idea, or is it just this new like capability, right? Like, yes, it serves a need, but does that need go away because it's just a point in time as this evolves?
Yeah, and I would also try to think about, is it a core feature of the product where you actually need AI to run whatever model it is that they're developing, or is it something that makes the user interface easier, or it makes grabbing data on the back end easier? Like, what is the core feature of that? And what we are trying to spend more time optimizing. How do you optimize AI to make your business more efficient? And the businesses going through summer fellowship this summer, many of them have already generated revenue, already have customers that they're engaging with. So it's like, how do you make those processes most efficient and effective so you can spend more time actually building the strategy and figuring out the next steps while simultaneously delivering a product or service to your customers?
Sure. Yeah, it's use it to get yourself into a better position, or I mean, it definitely has enabled new opportunities to do things with mass amounts of data or interpret, different data sets. It's just the amount of like, are you using it, or are you on building AI?
Right.
It's like, well, are you training new AI?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Could you tell us some of those success stories that have come out, of UConn in your program? I know you mentioned Haley before, but, is there anyone else that comes to mind that can be a good inspiration for students coming through?
You can play favorites.
Yeah, please.
I don't know. I've heard that parents don't have favorite children. So I don't know. I'm not a parent yet, but I don't know. I think they're also different and vast in the problems they're solving. I know that going through this interview process is you're going to meet a lot of these startups that we've sort of picked and choose out of the bunch. They're across so many different industries. They're solving so many amazing different problems. And those individuals themselves are so unique and so different. I don't know if you have a specific one that you wanted to highlight other than the 10 that will be featured on the podcast series.
Well, I was going to say, let's focus on some others. So maybe like SedMed, Phoenix Tailings, Barodermics, Encapsulate. It's everything from like kind of cancer diagnostics to creating a toilet mobility device. But they're all solving such cool problems. But it's just been fascinating to be a part of them. So do you want to talk about?
I'll talk about Phoenix Tailings just because we've been talking a lot, at least in the news, about tariffs, right? Like, can a podcast exist today without using the word tariffs? We check that off the bingo card right now. But there's a lot around rare earths. And so you guys have heard a lot of the manufacturing, we depend so much on China for these rare earth materials to go into things like EVs, smartphones, like really everything and anything that we use. And the government's investing a lot of money in startups to bring manufacturing to the US and find a way to do that more efficiently, effectively. We can own the process. So we launched a startup in 2019 called Phoenix Tailings. The founders are from Connecticut. They moved out to the Boston area just with access to resources and the space to manufacture. And I think they're opening a facility in New Hampshire soon. They just raised a Series B, $75 million. And their goal is to remediate red mud, so bauxite residue from aluminum refining, and take those core ingredients or materials and resell them. And there's really no other place that's doing this. And so it's good for the environment. It helps to save money. It brings our manufacturing to the US. And there's so many benefits. So Nick has been on CNN, has been in, all of these different places talking about his business because it's so timely and relevant. And just thinking about his early stage pitch, and it's just so funny to think back to those early days when he really wasn't sure how he was going to do what he was going to do. He just knew it could happen. And he was trusting his scientists that he was working with on, on the back of all of this. And just to see incrementally how much they've grown. And if you go like on their careers page, they're hiring right now like maybe 20 to 30 different positions across the board. And like that's just such an incredible value add to our ecosystem. So super proud of Phoenix Tailings and Nick's team.
Yeah, and they used the funding that they won. They won the Wolf New Venture competition, which we hold every October. They won that back in 2019 and used that funding to build their first prototype. Wow. So it's wonderful that like the resources that we provide are actually
you see it in action, right?
Yeah.
It's like some of the folks that we've talked to, I'm pretty sure pretty much everyone has like these ideas that like, you were talking about mobility and things like that. And it's like, yes, right? Like if you didn't have like the investor hat on, sometimes you just like, it's a no-brainer, right? It's like 100%. Like this should be, take all the money and make it a reality. Yeah. But then I think, whether it's the pitch competition angle or ideally those, at the event, there's going to be investors there and angels there, kind of putting that scrutiny to like, what's my return, right? Or like my exit. And that's been some of the interesting conversations, because growth is one thing and like what the next step is, but then, how someone else could get paid back or what it means for someone else has been some of the tough dots to connect, I think, so far.
Yeah. And one of the biggest challenges, we've been talking with entrepreneurs, and we do this every summer. They go, who am I pitching to? There could be 100 people in the audience. Some of them are your customers. Some of them have business experience in this industry and are going to be super critical. Some of them are investors. So how do you broadly compel your audience to hear your story, to be empathetic with what it is you're creating and understand it if they don't have any industry experience, but then also be as open as you can be about the market opportunity without overselling it for those that are really good at picking apart numbers. And it is hard to balance that. And I think we're going to see that at the event in August is how do you really tell that story so people understand what it is you're doing and can captivate them with the opportunity.
Yeah, I also think we spend a lot of time talking with them about what their ask is, right? So just because they're in the summer fellowship program, which means they're a scalable venture, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be a venture-backed business. And that's something we really talk with them about, is we're not prepping you to go out and raise funding. If that's where you think your business needs to go, if that's what you think you need to do, then amazing, we'll help you do that. If you are gonna go the grants route or bootstrapping route, then we'll help you with that. But figuring out what that ask is, so if it's not monetary of raising, then if it's, do you need to make a hire, or you're trying to find a co-founder, or what you need introductions, or you need a regulatory consultant, just that ask doesn't have to be, we need $1.2 million to do whatever. So working with them on that as well.
How often do you guys get inspired by the ambition of these people? We had Christian in yesterday, and he's like, yeah, in the 6th grade, I just had a bug for international development. And I was like,
and then you immediately go to like, where was I in 6th grade? Yeah, I was like picking my nose on like the swing set or something, right? Like you're like, what was I doing with my time? But no, I think about that. You just talked about, we have undergrad students that'll come in with like their 2nd or 3rd business idea, and they're talking to you.
It's crazy.
Way more mature than I was at 17 or 18 years old. But I'm inspired every day, and that's why I do what I do. I'm so passionate about this. And I was an entrepreneur, so was Alycia. We've started businesses, we've experienced being around entrepreneurs, and this is it's amazing to be a part of something, to create something that never existed before, and know that you have this unlimited impact. And it's not just on one business. For us, we get the opportunity to hold the hand and guide hundreds of entrepreneurs, and that's so amazing.
Well, what came up with Christian was like, as you add to your team and the company grows, it's like, especially as an entrepreneur, like that weight is now on you too, right? And it's like, so the drive to keep going is inherent in an entrepreneur, but then you also feel this obligation because everyone that is now in your network is connected and dependent in their livelihoods and their families. You kind of wear that. So we were talking about how much that can start to wear.
And when you're making a hire, you aren't necessarily going to hire someone that's just as passionate about the idea as you are. So at some point, needing to let that go. Obviously, they need to still be on, the same wavelength that they want to solve this problem. They want to work with you to solve that. But I think that's hard for someone who's super passionate to let go of that piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The scale, like we talked about scaling them, each of them, right, in different ways, and then really being able to make it a bigger footprint for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to hear how he's kind of stumbling into different problems that they're solving. Like he started with food production and ending this food hunger. Now it's turning into an employment. Now he's employing people, so it's solving a different problem, and he's just going to keep finding those different problem solving skills as he goes, which is pretty interesting. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs find that as they go in their business as well.
Yeah. And we always tell them that the first business model that you come in CCEI with is certainly not the one you're going to be at in 3 or 4 or 5 years. You're going to keep iterating. And the companies that do that, I think, are the ones that are most successful.
Yeah. Could you tell us about your experiences as entrepreneurs as well, and how you guys got so involved in this program? I'm sure everyone would love to hear it.
Go ahead, Alycia.
Yeah, sure. So when I graduated from college, I begrudgingly moved back to Connecticut, where I grew up. And I grew up in West Hartford, which is a wonderful town. And it's kind of a town that you don't need to leave if you don't want to, right? Like has wonderful restaurants, has basically everything that you need. Yeah. And I realized as a 23-year-old that I was just kind of living in this bubble and wanted to start making the most of my time in Connecticut. And all of my friends we were going to the same 4 places on weekends, doing the exact same things. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to explore more of Connecticut, see what it had to offer, and kind of prove that Connecticut had some cool things going on. So, at the time, Connecticut was also in this place where we were just losing millennials left and right. No one was coming back after college. So I had this idea to start an Instagram account to show off the best food restaurants and travel ideas that were around the state. So I kind of just did that as a little passion project, hobby, and it blew up, and I ended up doing that full time for 7 years. It was called CT Eats Out, and I went around and showed off restaurants, chefs, farmers markets, food trucks. We held a supper club dinner series where I brought in guest chefs, and we held a really fun dinner party for people. It was just a really awesome, fun experience that combined my love for travel and food, and then turned into a very big love for the state of Connecticut. And we did partnerships with Uber and DoorDash and all kinds of fun stuff. So I did that until 2020, and got kind of burnt out in the middle of the pandemic trying to make all of that work. And at the same time saw a job posting for CCEI, mm-hmm. which at the time was a kind of marketing entrepreneurship position. And was like, oh, wow, this would be fun because I still get to work with entrepreneurs, but don't need to be stressed out about the accounting and all the stuff that I didn't love doing as an entrepreneur myself. Mm-hmm. So I've been at CCEI since then and working with a slew of entrepreneurs. And it's been really fun to get to work on the fun aspects of their businesses with them without having to have that stress myself.
Yeah. I mean, coming up with a way to never have to make a reservation is incredible.
Mine's a little bit different in that I wanted to work in higher education to provide support to people that were learning or growing or trying to do something with their career. And I worked full-time as an undergraduate student at UConn, just wanted to gain as much experience as I could. And in my career process, I was also starting a business on the side, just a creative outlet to do something fun and exciting and different. And at the same time, a position opened at CCEI, and it was a program manager position, basically just picking up the pieces of some ideas of different programming that was what was going to happen, and came in and learned so much. And I never looked back. It's been amazing. So I built my business alongside of building the capacity of the center and hiring and mm-hmm. creating the team. And then ultimately decided, which I think is an important part in the process, and Alycia just shared her story of understanding when enough is enough. And I think that's the part our entrepreneurs really struggle with, mm-hmm. is how often or how long do you keep persisting with a mm-hmm. business that even if it's successful, if it's not making you happy or it's not bringing you joy or it's burning you out, you need to balance what you value most and making the decision. It's not a failure to let something that was successful ultimately go.
Right.
So that's the choice I had to make.
Yeah.
Were you starting to kind of get that burnout before COVID, or was COVID just like too much? Because that no one was eating out, right? And it was tough to get out, I'm assuming.
I was getting the burnout a little bit before. I think COVID was like the icing on the cake there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of my revenue at the time was coming from sponsorships and ads with Connecticut restaurants who were closed and weren't making any money themselves and were laying off all their staff. And so it was something where I took a step back from taking money from anyone and was just furiously trying to figure out how to get people to go to their restaurants and get takeout or whatever it was. And I think it just kind of like put me over the edge there of like working a ton of hours for free and kind of like just losing sight of what the actual passion behind it was, and instead feeling like I was in like massive like saver mode kind of. But that being said, I do have this desire lately to bring it back in a slightly different capacity. So if anyone has ideas of how I can do that, let me know later.
Do you have any restaurants?
Talk to you about season pass.
Season pass, yeah. Any restaurants you recommend right off the bat, off the top of your head?
Foundry?
Where am I?
Foundry.
I love the
Foundry is
Foundry. Jeff
so
is wonderful. I've been working with him since it was on 20. So way back when.
Yeah.
Mystic is a really great town right now with a ton of restaurants that are delicious. Yeah. Oyster Club, love. Nana's, love.
Around here? Like the Charles?
Yeah.
The Charles.
Charles, yeah.
Yeah. Can I also just touch on one other point that you said that I thought was really interesting is when you start to get paid for something that you're passionate about, there is a tipping point between continuing to drive that passion and then getting paid for something and then no longer getting paid for it. Like your passion drops off. If anyone's read the book Drive by Daniel Pink, like he talks all about that. And it's really, really important to think about when you're going out and looking for a job or you're starting a business, your passion and commitment and drive has to sustain the ebbs and flows of the market and of money and all of these other external rewards. And sometimes it doesn't. And that's, something you just need to be aware of.
Yeah, that like, what was that old school question of like, what would you do
if money wasn't an object? Yeah.
There was never a job description for lay on a beach, listen to music, and have a margarita. I don't know. I couldn't find that one.
Yeah. You can serve margaritas to other people.
I was like, I'll open up a tiki
closest you can get, probably.
Rent jet skis, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about sort of the culmination of the program, which is the Wolf competition, right?
Yeah, so 10 startups are accepted into summer fellowship every year. From there, we select 5 startups to move on to the Wolf New Venture competition. So they will be pitching for over $115,000 in non-dilutive funding. And we also hold an expo, so kind of a startup showcase that night as well. So we'll be inviting back all previous summer fellowship teams as well as this year, since it's also the 10th anniversary of the Wolf New Venture competition, as it's the 10th anniversary of our summer fellowship program. We're going to be inviting back startups from all across UConn. So they don't necessarily need to have gone through one of our programs, but to show off the technologies and innovations that are coming off out of the university just as a whole. So it'll be a really fun night. We'll have a big audience full of ecosystem partners, people in Connecticut, investors, mentors, previous startups, and it's a really, really fun, lively event. And we're hoping to bring in a keynote speaker this year as well, so that'll be a fun addition.
What's the relationship, obviously, with many of the Connecticut organizations that can offer funding or grants? I'm sure you have great relationships, but from the other universities or other programs with affiliations, or is there a little bit of a competition there, you think, or is it just a nice play well in the sandbox?
Yeah, I don't think so, because we're not really competing against each other for the same, there's not a scarcity effect. I think that happens when you're trying to win over the same customer, same dollar amount.
pulling from UConn.
Right. Yeah. You know, there is some overlap because we say a UConn founder or co-founder. So there's sometimes a student from Yale and a student from UConn will work on a project together. But that's great because they'll get resources from both areas. So for us, we look at it as a value add. And I'm not going to say it takes a village because that's so corny, but it really having an ecosystem where there's people that you can pass someone along to. The worst thing happens when you have a startup that is you believe in truly. There's nowhere for them to go get money and resources. And that was the case, 10 years ago. There wasn't as much access to that sort of thing. And now it's like we can call up our friends at Connecticut Innovations in a second and they know whether they can help or not, they know someone and pass it along, or really any of our organizations that we've worked with.
Yeah, I think also most organizations in Connecticut are really good about having like a specific customer that's good for that program, right? So like only certain startups are at a stage to go through summer fellowship. They might not be a fit ever for summer fellowship, but we can, because of all these other wonderful ecosystem partners that exist, people can go through summer fellowship and then go do another accelerator that exists in the state, or we can tell them that no, they didn't get into summer fellowship, but here are 4 other options that you can go do this year so that you're still kind of making headway and then maybe come back. It's a big kind of cyclical relationship, and I think it really benefits the startups that they have so many options now in the state.
What for the non-winners? Are they sort of like, oh, great, go, like you're 18 now, like go make it on your own, or like how does the support continue, or are there other programs, or is that where they're handed to a sister organization?
Yeah, part of the last 4 weeks of the program is really building the what comes next plan and mapping that whole thing out. So yes, we do provide support. People come back to us all the time and ask us for advice or ask for connections. But from a programmatic standpoint, once Wolf is done, right now, that is the latest stage program that CCEI offers, really that UConn offers. And then, we've been playing around with the idea of bringing together a post-accelerator program. We've looked at the opportunity and resources and all of that, and it's something we're considering doing. So a place that entrepreneurs can come post-program and provide support to each other, more like a cohort experience. But that's still in ideation. Yeah.
Right. What is some advice that you continually give entrepreneurs that come through your program?
The ones that we wish we had hit record so we could just hand it off and not have to keep saying it over and over again.
Yep, exactly.
I think be willing to pivot, I think is the biggest thing, especially when you're working with the really early stage companies, is they come in so gung-ho about an idea and a plan, and they think that this is the way it has to go, but realizing that you might discover things along the way that are roadblocks to that, or that show that you need to go a different direction with it. So being open to that and being willing to hear, be coachable and hear advice from people and take it, and just be willing to make changes, because if you aren't, then you're potentially going to get stuck.
For the early stage entrepreneurs, we always say, what could go wrong with your business? Plan for all of those things now. Sit down and ask yourself everything that can go wrong, not because you're afraid and it's going to hold you back from doing anything, but list all those things out and then solve for those. And if you don't have an answer, find someone that does and keep building the capacity. And I think everyone's so afraid, all of the things that they don't want to happen, they put into like a little bag and hide it under the bed, right? And hope that they never have to deal with it. Yeah. But if you deal with it up front, you will be far more successful and more prepared when inevitably you hit a wall.
Yeah. And I think it's so important too nowadays with social media and stuff, right? Everyone's posting their successes. So that's what everyone's seeing. So they're like, oh, this is easy. I can do this. And then they go and you're like, whoa. There's all these different things that you have to account for as well. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah. And don't admit when you need help, because that's another one. No one's going to come in and provide support to you if you keep talking about how great everything is.
Right.
It's interesting you said that the younger generations are impressing you with their drive and their ideas, because there's obviously a lot of otherwise criticism of the younger generation in other ways. But when you were kind of talking about social media, one of the things that we keep seeing, right, is this influencer culture, the kind of get rich quick visible evidence on social, and the unicorn push of startups, over the last, it's slowed, but
has kind of warped that what it takes to actually push it forward. So it's great to hear that they have great ideas, and now it's just about kind of getting them to drive through to see it through.
Yeah, the grit.
Is that there? Or is that part of what you have to teach too?
It's funny because it's one of those things. It's like, does someone come with, are you born with grit and resilience? Is it something you learn over your life? Is it something that's coachable and teachable?
Question? I mean,
Is it like,
I think it's learned. I think some people are just born differently, and they think a little bit differently, but I think it's reinforced through early childhood and like seeing family or other mentors. And do I think that it can be taught? I think it can be taught after a failure. I don't think that you can hammer in how hard someone has to work until they realize that they didn't work hard, or you can point to how they didn't work hard enough.
so if it can't be learned until after a failure, then coaching for failure, coaching that failure is okay, is one of the things that continuously needs to happen, not just when you hand them off to us when they finally get to UConn or college, right?
Yep.
It needs to happen before that. And I think that's part of the challenge. I don't know if this current generation sees failure as an opportunity.
It's been difficult, right? Just even in our walls, right? Like the criticism or coaching or however you want to kind of frame it, right, is seen as criticism. Many are saying, "Oh, well, I'm entitled to that," or like that. It's just a different. They were different, which I remember like everything, but like my generation, right, like was formed by, like Unsolved Mysteries and Are You Afraid of the Dark and heavy metal having subliminal messages of like devil worship. And like, so it was also the first generation, both parents were working. So it was like framed by all that. And then now and social media wasn't really a thing. So like I could explore who I was. I could say shit that would get me canceled now, but like, that's how I was evolving and adapting and whatever else. And now this generation, remote through COVID, everything that they ever say or will have ever done will be documented and can be pulled, back up against them. It's like, there's war, there's movements, there's everything that is just like kind of shifting how they consume, plus this like get rich quick, plus this like, so I don't, I'm not qualified to figure out how to best do it other than like you read and it's like, oh, well, use the sandwich method. So you have to compliment them, then tell them they sucked, then compliment them again, right? But it's like, someone smarter than me has to figure that out. But yeah, I think criticism needs to, they have to hear it, right? Like that's how we all learn.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I think like back to the grit portion of it, I think a lot of the young entrepreneurs that we see, I'm thinking of one in particular, but I don't want to like name drop them on here, like is like an undergraduate that comes through that might be absolutely brilliant in chemistry or I don't know, some sciencey field that I'm not qualified to be a part of, right? And entrepreneurship is this new fun thing that has come in that has given them another path to take, whereas normally they would have had to like go become a chemist or like gone and done a job that existed in a lab. They are now able to take their talents, that grit, that hard work that they would normally put towards, inventing things in a lab capacity to building a business with it. And I think that is actually like a fun, like new way for them to put all their talents and take an interest in things. So I think we have been lucky to see kids come in that have this work ethic and drive that their parents have instilled with them of like, you are going to college, you are doing these things, and that are very smart. And now they're applying it into entrepreneurship instead of just traditional ways. And I think it's really paying off for us. And I think it's really paying off for the world too, because you're going to get all these amazing innovations out of these young kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, and those, some it's built in, I think, and then others are going to learn like, that like entrepreneurship doesn't come as easy as math or science did, right? Like it's like, so that's something, that's a muscle I have to train. I'm not used to training. That came natural. But that's part of evolving as a, you know, one as an adult, but then two, like as an entrepreneur, like you have to learn those things, right? Learn the boundaries or how to surround yourself with mentors and capable people and look like you.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I mean, I think it kind of goes both ways though too, right? Like entrepreneurship can come easier for someone than math did, like 100 times, right? Like it's just as someone who like grew up with ADHD and like math was not a thing I was ever gonna be really good at, like knowing how, like realizing later on that there were like these talents that I had that could be applied in different ways, that suddenly I was like really good at things because it wasn't just like, can you go do calculus, right? Like, so I think it's both.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, 100%.
I also think teaching, I'm going through the whole math example. It's like you always were taught, here's how you do it, right? You when you were learning algebra, you went home and you took the example from class and you applied it to your homework. And it wasn't thinking about it more critically. And those are the skills, I think, in the age of AI, in this world, we need to be able to create people that have critical thinking skills, not teaching them how to do something, but how to think or how to think differently and to do something without necessarily having the answers. And I have hope that that's where we're headed, or the necessity of it is pushing us in that direction.
Do you see AI becoming sort of, I guess, maybe a problem in a sense, where you're getting these generations now that are coming to college who grew up with ChatGPT? I could never imagine going to school, like middle school, high school, with ChatGPT, because that's all my exams. I can get papers done in 10 seconds with that. So now when it comes to critical thinking, are you
going to the library, checking out books, trying to find 3 books on New Jersey to write a essay on train?
What is a book?
Yeah, exactly. I still had Wikipedia. But yeah.
Those encyclopedias like your grandparents would buy you.
That was
had, like,
the shit that when I first got that, I was like, whoa, like this is everything right here.
Yeah. But have you been seeing that recently? I'm assuming kind of that those generations are starting to come through now.
Well, I think it's going to be there. So it's like, how do we coach them and provide support? Anytime, anything. Remember, like, what is the internet? Do you remember, like, 1992? People are asking ourselves on the news, like, what is this thing? It's a thing that's going to happen. We just have to figure out how to adapt to it and not put on our syllabus, do not use ChatGPT. It's like, if you're going to use it, here's the right way to think critically and use it as a way to give information, but then what do you do with it after? I do myself use it quite often to help me think and brainstorm and gather information and synthesize. And sometimes I have to pause and go, can you do this without, like, just put it off to the side. I'm talking about like addiction, like put it off to the side for a second, see if I can actually do it on my own. But no, I think it's just a tool we need to teach people how to use. And then on the other end, those of us that are older, we need to figure out how to provide support and be okay with that.
I think from like a business standpoint, it's acceleration. I really think that, like, from when you start talking about higher ed or, like, you know, learning, I almost see it more of a shift and change for the educators than the students, right? It's like it's gonna create a need to pull out more of the critical thinking and analysis and application rather than reciting the framework, right? And and that's, a lot of tests are just like, you know, this is a part of, you know, this compound, like, yes, true or false, right? Like, and that's stuff that is, because I was trying to go back to, like, I had a notebook in college, okay, guys, right? Like
paper?
And a pencil?
Or no, like a slab that he chiseled.
Yeah, no, I was chiseling. I got a computer at some point. But, like, that was a fundamental change, right? Like, and like the world didn't halt, like we just evolved on. It's like, okay, now you were taking notes, you could take notes differently, like, and faster. And then when the internet, yes, it was like, well, what is this whole internet thing? But it was like, okay, now we can just access more information. So the expectations became, your report should be more in depth, right? Or you should have a deeper knowledge rather than just the capital of New Jersey is Trenton, right? Like, whatever it is. So I feel like right now, because it's so, maybe we're like, oh, this is going to be such a bigger monumental shift, and it's going to enable a lot of things like the computer did or whatever it is. But I think it's it's less on how we use it's like it's going to amplify how we use. It has to, right? Like it's
because I feel like our brains are not meant to be storage tanks to hold every single thing ever. We just need to be able to quickly process and synthesize information. So your example of, I don't need to know every single element on the periodic table. I just need to know where I can go and get that information whenever it becomes relevant to me in some way. Same thing with ChatGPT. I think we're going to be able to pull and utilize different parts of our brain and our time more effectively.
Then there's room for like teaching kids how to do their taxes instead of advanced algebra.
Remember you need to know long division because you're not going to always have a calculator on you, and then it's like your phone.
Yeah, you need to learn cursive because
exactly.
Because you sign your signature.
Skills.
I haven't signed my signature like analog in probably 5 years. Like everything's digital now.
Yeah,
everything.
It's true.
I remember when the smartboard came out. That was like the big thing when I was when I was in like first or second grade. They were like they unveiled it. It took like a curtain down. It was unveiled. It was a smartboard. You couldn't touch it. You had to calibrate it every once in a while with the dots. But you just it was like this like mysterious thing. And now it's like they're like flat screens now. You could probably like I don't even know. But
so you need to go put him in a room and let him listen to chalk on a
I know.
chalkboard. Like he needs to be traumatized.
I was literally
for a little bit.
like picturing the chalk on my hands.
Yeah. And the feeling when it like just hits just around, you're like,
So innovations.
We've really kind of taken a left turn here.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
So how about some parting thoughts?
Words of wisdom.
Well, I guess so with the competition, obviously there's a big competition that they're all gearing up for. We've asked them a bit about what, they hope for out of the event, but what would you sort of say is, this is our first kind of pilot and, kind of all of the participants are part of your cohort. So like getting to August 21st, or what do you hope is added value for them, or what do you hope comes out of it, with the involvement in shaping?
Yeah. So one, to add a little bit of context to anyone, we keep talking about the Wolf Adventure competition and the summer fellowship. The cohort of 10 that is selected for Shaping CT's Future is a compilation of the 4 years of startups that have gone through our summer accelerator. So there's like probably two or
thick-skulled, so yeah.
But anyone that's listening that's like putting the pieces together.
Because I've confused everyone.
No, it's okay. I'm sure people are probably like, yeah, I got it, Jen, got it. But so there's probably like 2 or 3 from every cohort for the last 4 years to make up the 10. Clearly I paid attention to math. And they're going to come together and pitch. They're all generally at a very similar stage. So it was thoughtful in that approach. My hope for them is that they are willing to make enough of an ask to say the areas that they need improvement on, not just stand up there and talk about how amazing their business is, because there's people in the audience, whether it's they themselves that can help them or they know someone that can. Connecticut's a small state. This is why we do these events, right? Bring people together that have the ability to make a big impact. I want anyone that's even remotely interested in entrepreneurship or even remotely as a consumer of some sort of anything, which we all are, to listen to these episodes, to come to this event and provide support to startups, because I think that's going to make a huge impact.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go similar, where it was just I hope that they get like one good connection from it in some way, whether it's their consumer brand and they get a new customer, or they're someone that's working in the medical space and they get a connection to whatever it is they need. I'm hoping that the reach of this and kind of the audience are able to provide that for them. They're all in really unique places in their entrepreneurial journey, and it's these events and things like this that connect them to people that they might not know otherwise. So I think it's just a really great for exposure, connections, networking, and I hope it also gives them another opportunity to practice their pitch and what their ask is. So I think it's just good experience for them all around.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And a huge shout out to Rebellion's team for putting this together. I mean, this event, I've loved going to them and we've participated in a variety of different ways, but creating a stage literally for these startups to come out, both in a physical stage on August 20th but even before on this podcast, it's a huge opportunity. So thank you for taking the time to do this and to support entrepreneurs here in Connecticut.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the goal we've kind of said all along is just to kind of force new conversations and hopefully get people in the room that otherwise wouldn't have gotten in the room. And obviously there's access to services and organizations, and a lot of times that always sits as, oh, you should meet, or connect with, or go see so and so about this, and they may be able to help you. And whether we get shy or we get busy or whatever it may be, like those kind of gets put off. So hopefully we can kind of create. The whole point is to create those collisions that accomplish what you're talking about. Yeah. We told Christian to go tackle Brian because he's doing the fertilizer out of the organic waste.
Yeah, organic waste.
Yeah.
Quant.
So he said quantum.
Yeah.
So tackle him. See what he's But yeah, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, you guys have a great lineup of speakers and entrepreneurs that are going to be participating. So I think it's a wonderful room for them to be stepping into.
We're very excited. We're very excited to have them.
And this should be, obviously, we always have to do something different because why try and just do the same thing? Well, again, we'll keep pushing. But yeah, we're going to have some breakouts that are topical and structured too. So, if folks have a specific need or, they're kind of geared around stages of scale, from sort of early opportunity to then sort of that transition and scaling yourself, and how you pass along the entire business that you've done for yourself for so long. So funding, resources, support, workforce training, everything. We're trying to get sort of representation from each stage and have breakouts, during the event. So you can kind of pick it's not really a track. It's just, one breakout session, but something that may be of a particular need for businesses at their time. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
for having us.
Yeah,
Of course.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
our pleasure.